This is Secrets for Success in 2025. And I am Roy Kirchner. I'm a serial entrepreneur out of Tampa, Florida. And JR is coming on. He was on and had a power surge, so he's coming back very soon. But give you a little bit of information and background on me. I own businesses here in Tampa Bay, Florida, and wanted to come on every single week and kind of give out information to help people be successful in 2025. So that is the purpose of doing this every single week. And again, I'm just waiting on JR to get back on. And there he is. Can you
I'm
hear us, JR?
sorry. Yes, literally, I had a power surge just after we launched. All my power went off, my network went down. Oh, goodness. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. And we're actually at the part where you're introducing yourself. So if you would like
All right,
to
perfect.
introduce yourself, that would be great.
All right, perfect. Well, good afternoon or good morning, everyone, depending on where you are watching from today. My name is JR Espino. My company is Alloy Advisors. I am based here in the Tampa Bay area, and I am a business coach. And ultimately, my whole mission is to help business owners, entrepreneurs, and leaders succeed in leading their organizations, whether it is for their own goals for the organization as entrepreneurs or even for their employees and their successes. Um, One of the other things that I get to do is I get to be an affiliate with a lot of different organizations and have established a lot of relationships. And so, just like every week, Roy, thank you for your partnership in getting to be a part of this LinkedIn Live of Secrets for Success in 2025. So I don't know, Roy, if you had shared what our topic is for today, but I'll go ahead and share in case you had
All right.
not. And our topic for today is own your drive, staying motivated in the pursuit of success. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, we could have other people influence our lives, whether they're coaches like myself, consultants like you, Roy. But at the end of the day, it is only going to be based on the individual. The success is going to be based on the individual and what they have in terms of their own grit, in terms of their own efforts, and what their motivation is. And so, with that, Roy, I'm actually going to ask you a question, and that is, what in general, what strategies do you use to stay motivated and focused through multiple ventures and challenges, especially considering the fact that you are a serial entrepreneur and have your thumb and fingerprint on so many different things?
Yeah, I think the number one thing that you can say is no matter how much you're doing, there's always challenges, right? So it doesn't matter really in life. You just have massive, enormous challenges. I think everybody nowadays has more challenges now than they ever have, right? When it
Mm.
comes to just funneling life in business in all of these things. So I look at myself no different than anybody else, right? You overcome obstacles and you achieve success. And it's literally putting in time, effort, consideration, grit, resilience, and surrounding yourself with people that help you become better, right? They always say be in the room, be the non-smartest person or the dumbest person in the room, right? And it really comes down to being around people that have success, and then that see you as an authentic, real person and
Mm.
want to see you achieve success, right?
Mm. Mhm.
Because the true goal is helping anybody achieve success, right?
Mhm.
And it comes down to that. If you're a good person, you want to see people be successful in life, right?
Mhm.
So you can automatically know if you're around somebody and they don't want to see you succeed, you're around the wrong person. Like that's just a red flag immediately, 100%, right? So you
Yeah.
you need to surround yourself with good people, but you got to have goals, right? I
Mm,
think the number one thing is realizing what you want in life, right? And what you want to achieve.
mm,
And that is not an easy thing to do, right? What I
mm,
just said is not easy. I mean, there's people that I meet that are older than me and don't even realize what they truly want yet. Um,
mm,
but it comes down to figuring out what you want and then not letting things get in your way.
mm,
Is really what it comes down to. And it's sacrifice. It's sacrificing things, the small things, to get the big things, right?
mm.
And we're going to dive way more into this on this episode today, but I'll turn it back over to you, JR, for a second so you can kind of jump in.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love that. We regularly talk about the fact that we should have people around us who will support us, right? And I believe it was just last week we had mentioned, not only do we want to have the people around us who we can learn from, and, we say every week, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, but then also that we need to have the people surrounding us who will encourage us, who will, quote, have our back. And even with that, with this topic today, it's staying motivated intrinsically. And so, one of the things in my own experience, what I didn't mention at the top of the session here or episode, is that I came from corporate America. I have over 27 years with the same organization, grew from individual contributor to a senior leader, and led a lot of different people. And one thing that I had found was that as I would have newer members of my team, I would regularly talk about the fact that, like, hey, there is a reason that you chose to be employed by the company. Yes, we chose you, but you made a choice as well. And whatever that choice is, that's going to be your motivator. That's going to be the thing that's going to keep you resilient when going gets tough. Because to your point, things happen, right? And so I would say for me personally, in terms of that motivation, it is sort of the overall goal, like you said. What do I want to achieve? And have my eye on that prize. So that way I can say, yeah, you know what? All this noise that's happening right now, I'm going to be able to get through it because I want to be able to achieve that. And actually, speaking of goals, I see in the chat Ralph Mera, he had posted, when you make goals, should you do short-term goals first or focus on long-term? So I'm going to chime in that, and then I'll turn over to you, Roy. For me, I
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
always I always say start with a long-term goal first. I always say start with what is the end in mind, so then you can work backwards from that, right? Because at the end of the day, the example I regularly use is a GPS device. If you want to go somewhere, you put in the destination. So, Roy, right now, if I were to just put in where you are, mountains, the likelihood of me getting to where you are is next to nothing. However, if I put in the specific destination of where you are currently located, I'm going to get there. And oh, guess what? When it comes to those short-term goals, those are the checkpoints along the way that show, my mileage, how much time I have left, all those different things. And in the event that something happens, there's an accident, I get a detour, I still have that long-term goal, my destination that I can work back toward. So that's my take on Ralph's question about making those goals in terms of the resiliency, because it is, what do I ultimately want to achieve? Roy, what are your thoughts on that comment and question?
Yeah, I'm gonna say both. Like I think depending on the personality of the person, I really have to say this, right? Is sometimes you have to have short term goals and long term goals because you need to hit those short term goals so that you feel like you're succeeding, right?
Yeah,
And it really it does depend on the person and their personality and
yeah.
things like that. And one of the things that I would recommend for anybody and everybody to do, when we were just talking about this the other day, is to realize what type of person you are. Like
Mm,
if you need to create short-term goals, long-term goals, I'm going to throw this out there. You know what it is? It's do a personality test on yourself. Find out
mm,
your strengths, find out your weaknesses, Like find them out, right? And definitely find out your weaknesses, and then start. That could be a goal of yours, right? Is overcoming your weaknesses. And
Mm,
a true personality test is absolutely going to give you that information. And you have to remember that's something that you can decide within yourself. Do you want to share with somebody else and let other people know your weaknesses to help you get over those weaknesses, or do you want to
mm-hmm,
just share them within you, right, and then overcome them?
mm-hmm,
I can tell you. I mean, I'm gonna jump to a story here. So I was in the car business and I was selling cars for 5 years, and I was one of the top salespeople at the dealership. But my goal, my mission, was to become an F&I manager, right?
mm,
And a friend of mine had left the dealership that I was at for 5 years, and he went to another dealership. And he gave me a call and he said, Roy, he said, I know your dream is to be an F&I manager, and I will give you that opportunity.
mm,
And the way that you become an F&I manager is I had to go to a school down in Deerfield Beach. It was a couple day school for legal and ethical and training and different things like this. And I have a disability, right? I have a disability, just so you can understand. Like I graduated high school with the fourth grade reading level. I can't read really good at all. And I
mm,
knew that I wanted more than anything to become an F&I manager. And I knew that this school was intense. It was put on by a Fortune 500 company. And you had to like really be on point, right? So you would go to the school during the day, but then you had to study at night. And I
mm,
knew in order to pass this school, this is back before technology, I actually needed to bring somebody with me and have them read to me at night the things that I needed to know, right? So I
mm,
had to hire somebody, pay for them to come with me, and then after I got done with the school during the day, I had them sit there and read to me at night. But you know what? I passed the course. I
mm,
realized that that was a weakness that I had. And I realized
mm,
that if I want to overcome my weakness, I got to figure out a way. Right. And I did.
mm,
And I passed. Right. And I
mm,
became an F&I manager. And that is just kind of giving you some information, right? That you got to really figure out what it is and what you want to do, and then you got to figure out how to overcome these obstacles that you have within your life, right?
yeah,
And I've always been the person that I figure out how to come over obstacles. I'm that
mm,
person that overcomes obstacles, right? And it doesn't matter what the obstacle is, right? And obstacles can be big, can be small, and some can be gigantic. Like this year was been one of the hardest years ever, right? I lost my mother. Like I lost her just recently, right? And that was gigantic, enormous, and I could let it stop me like in my tracks because you're just hurting so bad, right?
yeah,
Because the person that gave you life on this planet, the person that would always do anything and everything is now gone, right?
yeah,
And I realized, right, that there's a time to grieve and then there's a time to show up, right? And show that she made me on this planet for a reason, right? She made me
yeah,
so that I can make a difference. She made it so that I can make the world a better place, and I can do things just like we're doing now, and we can feed information to people and we can make them bigger and we can make them stronger and we can make them better, because I
yeah,
believe that anybody can be whoever they want to be. They just got to have the time, effort, consideration, and they got to put in that, right? And they got to stop making excuses, right?
yeah.
And it's that type of thing. So I'll throw it back over to you, JR, for a little bit, but that was quite a bit there. So
Yeah, I know. And thank you for sharing about your mom. And as I shared before, my thoughts go with you and your family on that. I've experienced quite a similar journey when it comes to that kind of loss, right? And any sort of obstacle can be big or small, can be enormous. And so for those of you who might not know what my story is, very, very quickly, I'll tell you that I lost several people in my life personally over the last several years sequentially. 2020, my father-in-law; 2021, one of my nieces; 2021, my childhood best friend; 2022, my wife; 2023, my brother, who I had a very close relationship with; and 2024, my mother. And so with that, I would often get feedback from people that they were surprised that I was going through all those different things, that I was, quote, an inspiration. And part of it was because of what my own resilience has been through all of that. Part of it has been around there is something that I need to go after. And, we've even shared in the past about like the big man upstairs. And so, having trust in the fact that there's something bigger out there is going to also guide me. Now, from a business perspective, or as an entrepreneur, as a business leader, it's the same type of thing, different scale, of course, right? It is, okay, there are these things that will happen. This is where I want to get to. There are things that will happen. And, for me, part of that in terms of navigating through that includes a mindset. And there are some specifically mindset coaches out there. I know a number of great ones out there, and people who I've partnered with as well. And it is about mind. It's funny. A long time ago, I was training to be a personal trainer, and a guy that I was working with, he said, "It's all mind over matter. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter." Right? And so we need to make sure that we get through that. We have that mindset that we're going to choose our approach to how we're going to respond and react. Many people who I've interacted with over the years know that I share the story about the carrot, the egg, and the coffee bean. And ultimately, it is what are you going to do when faced with adversity? What choice are you going to make? So I love that you're talking about the fact that you were innovative in overcoming those things. Even your story about the test, right, where you ended up hiring somebody to be able to help you overcome those things. And so actually, that ties into a question that I had queued up here, and that was around, what role does self-awareness play in staying motivated and making strategic decisions? So, with what you shared was the self-awareness was around, okay, these are my weaknesses. This is what I'm going to do to overcome. So, with where you are today as a successful entrepreneur, what would you say self-awareness plays in staying motivated and then making those strategic decisions for your organization?
I mean, self awareness is there. Like, I think that's the number one thing that you got to realize in
Yeah,
business and in life.
yeah,
Just the other day, like, I was at my desk and I had Siri's read something to me. And
mm,
like a person walked in and said, "Why do you have that reading to you?"
mm,
Again, because I comprehend better listening to somebody reading it to me. Now
yeah,
technology can, right? I can
yeah,
comprehend it better than me reading it myself. Can I read it? Yes, I can read it, but I can
yeah,
comprehend it better. And now that technology is able to do that, and I don't have to have a person sitting next to me, but I used to have a person sitting next to me. But why do I care that I had that person sitting next to me if I built multi-million-dollar companies? Right?
right.
Why do I care? Right? Why do I care what somebody else thinks? Because I know that I'm overcoming my weaknesses.
Mm,
And I think that's the number one thing that people need to understand is, like, it doesn't matter what other people think. There's
mm,
always going to be negativity in this world. There's always going to be that, right?
mm,
And you gotta determine who you are and realize that you're a good person. And you gotta fend for yourself, right? I mean, there's only fending for yourself is the way to go, right?
mhm,
Now you can have coaches, you can have consultants, you can have mentors, right? But a
mhm,
mentor, he can mentor you, right? But if he doesn't see that you're overcoming obstacles and you're
mhm,
you're getting, you're pushing through your weaknesses, then he's not gonna push into you, right? Now the other thing
mhm,
is a coach or a consultant is typically somebody that you pay, right? That's somebody that you pay.
mm,
And the thing with that, what motivates people typically is they're paying them, right? So
mm,
the coaches and consultants are cheap, right? So a lot of it is they're going to hold you accountable, and you're holding yourself
mhm.
accountable because you're spending money, right? And
Yeah,
that's one of the
yeah,
driving forces that go behind that, right? Is that you have to
yeah,
hold yourself accountable, because at the end of the day, nobody's going to do it for you. There can be a coach, there can be a consultant, there can be a mentor, but at the end of the day, it's you that has to decide, like, are you going to overcome these obstacles and get to the next level, right? Are you
Yeah.
going to do it? Are you going to let things stay the same? Right? Are you gonna give in to the world? And listen, I graduated high school. I was told I was never going to be anything. I was told that I should go work at CC's Pizza for $3.99, all you can eat pasta, pizza, salad, and dessert, and $1.09 for a drink. And you know what? I did. I went there. I did. I went there. Right.
Yeah.
And then I realized, like, not too long later, that I wanted to become more. Right. And that I wasn't
Yeah.
going to just give in to being this person. Right. And then I pushed myself, but I, through pushing yourself, right, you're gonna fail. It's gonna
Sure.
hurt.
Yeah.
It's gonna hurt. It's not gonna
Yeah.
kill you, but it's gonna hurt, right? In
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
single thing that you're doing, you're failing more times than you're succeeding. So people need to understand that too. Is it's okay to
Yeah.
fail as long as you learn from your failures, right? Hindsight's 2020. You can look in the past and you can see every single thing that you did wrong, but you did it wrong. It's okay that you did it wrong. You're just not going to do it again
Hmm.
because you're definitely not, right? It's you've learned from it and you just keep on
Hmm.
pushing forward. But if you let those failures overcome you, right? Just like you can let grief overcome you, right? Then
Yep.
you're not going to get to the next level, right? And that's the thing,
Yep.
is there's a time for for the wounds to heal, right? And then once
Yeah.
that time is done, even when you fail, there's times that you got to let your wounds heal, but then you got to get to the next level. You have to get to the
Hmm.
next level. You owe it to yourself. And that's the thing, is you
Hmm.
got to realize that you owe it to yourself. You don't owe it to anybody else, right? You owe it to
Right.
yourself. This is all
Yeah.
about self development, right? Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And so when it comes to self-awareness, that's actually one of the components, one of the pillars rather, of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is self-awareness, then there's self-management or self-regulation, then there's social awareness and relationship management. Those are the different things. And so at the end of the day, it starts with us. We have to have that level of awareness, right? We have to know what are the things that make us tick? What are the things that will be challenges? What will be the things that will make us successful? Because when, not if, when we experience a challenge, a struggle, or a quote failure, we're going to be able to overcome it, right? And I think that that's really why we're talking about this today in terms of resilience, in terms of that motivation, is because every single one of us will experience some sort of roadblock. um, I'm certified with Maxwell Leadership Training, and there is a book that John Maxwell wrote called The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And one of the laws is the law of the Big Mo. And the law of the Big Mo is about momentum, right? And so with momentum, the analogy that I regularly use surrounding momentum is that if you have a freight train going 65 miles per hour, it can bust through a 5 foot steel wall with ease. But you take that same freight train that has no momentum, that's parked, and you put a 2 inch block in front of its wheel, it's not going to move, right? So when it comes to our motivation and having that self awareness, it is going to allow for us to generate momentum. So that then when those things happen, we're able to bust through that 5 foot steel wall, that we are able to continue to head toward our ultimate goal and not let these setbacks get in the way, right? And even perhaps look at these obstacles more as stepping stones than obstacles, right? Because of the saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? And so being able to have that be a fuel to your fire, for lack of better terms. Now, when it comes to perseverance, we have to have some flexibility, right?
yeah.
So as far as perseverance, how do you balance that with flexibility when pursuing your vision? Because that's what the goal is. How do you balance perseverance with flexibility in your world, Roy?
I think it's, a lot of it is mindset. Having a
Oh,
tough mindset, right?
you look
Um,
frozen on
a
my
lot of it.
end. LinkedIn
Can you hear me?
live chat. Can you let me know who you hear right now? Because I don't hear Roy speaking. He looks frozen on my side.
Yeah, it says it's
Ralph, if you're still there, if you can just type in who you hear, and maybe
trying
you
to
don't hear me, and
reconnect.
maybe you only
Our
hear Roy
internet
right
went
now.
out here. Great.
Okay, I'm watching the stream, and it looks like I'm the only one here. All right, so I will
Fucking
continue
lost
while
internet.
Roy gets back onto the live
Yeah, it's
stream
done.
here.
Like it's fucking. I lost it.
Bear
Jesus
with me while
Christ!
I reset on my
Fucking thing
side
got
here.
stuck in my ear.
Okay, so my question to Roy
Damn,
was,
man.
how with flexibility when pursuing his vision. And I'll tell you from my perspective, um, perseverance, it's strength. Perseverance is that drive. I used to actually post on my little whiteboard right outside of my cubicle. The difference between try and triumph is a little umph. And part of why I say that is because we have to have that extra drive of perseverance and push. Now, at the same time, with the flexibility of it, I would say we can't veer off course too much. So when you're thinking about going down your path, achieving your
Is it
goal,
still
achieving
working
your
for JR?
mission,
Because mine is completely
when you
down.
have that obstacle, I shared the fact that we're able to come around and consider it like the navigation device, GPS device. So Pamela, thank you, and Kevin, thank you for acknowledging who you see and hear.
Damn, it
The
got fucking hot in
question
this
I will
house.
repeat that I had asked was, how do you balance perseverance with
Yeah, it's
flexibility
done.
when pursuing your vision? Keep it down. So in my case, then, when we experience a challenge, we're able to come up and around and view the obstacle as an opportunity. Then we get recalculating our route to get back on track to our goal. Again, the example of the GPS device. And when it comes to that level of flexibility, what I mentioned is we can't veer too far off course. Because if we veer too far off course, it may take us so much longer to be able to achieve our goal, our objective. Again, using the analogy of a GPS, something may happen, accident, we get rerouted. And then let's say we decide, oh, you know what? I'm feeling hungry. I'm going to stop at Chick-fil-A. And then we go a different route. And then we continue to go off this other path. That flexibility in getting to our ultimate objective and goal, it creates delay for us. So I would say making sure that when you're balancing that, you are continuing to think about your ultimate goal. You are continuing to keep that eye on the prize. And that goes back to my comment earlier when Ralph had posted the question, which do you focus on first? Do you focus on your short-term goal versus long-term goal? And my answer to that is focus on the long-term goal so that then you know general direction, the way that you're headed. Now, while Roy is working on his connection, for those of you who are viewing, please feel free to use the chat to make any comments or ask any questions so that then I can interact with you as well, as opposed to me just being a a uh, a talking head. And I see the comment that just came in, and I'm on a little bit of a delay here. And Kevin said you can't go on a side quest. Absolutely. Another question that I was going to ask Roy in this conversation, and obviously I would answer as well, um, was going to be around. Oh gosh, now my my screen is not working on my phone here. It was around aspiring leaders And now I lost my question. Oh my goodness gracious. We are having great technical challenges today. Okay, so for aspiring entrepreneurs, what mindset shifts are essential to stay committed to their goals? And I'm actually going to ask the viewers if you wouldn't mind answering that question as well. From your perspective, for aspiring entrepreneurs, what mindset shifts are essential to stay committed to their goals? And I will answer this not as an aspiring entrepreneur, but as a relatively new entrepreneur. As I mentioned, I was in corporate America for a very, very long time. And an important mindset shift is to ensure that you know that it is you. And this goes back to a comment that Roy made earlier. At the end of the day, as an entrepreneur, it's you and it's your decisions that you're going to make. It is about your ability to put in the effort as the leader of the organization, if you have a team reporting to you, or if it is just you, it's going to be your own effort. It's very similar to sales. When we have people who are in sales, they have a quota that they have to achieve. And that is what their goal is. And so they're only going to achieve that based on their own effort, even if they have other people involved in that process. So a significant mindset is that it really does fall on the person. And, you know, committed to the goal is that there is a reason why you decided to do it. There's a reason why you're considering becoming an entrepreneur. Goes back to the conversation or a comment I made earlier about my employees, who I would say there was a reason you chose to be employed by this organization. Use that as your motivator, right? So to me, it is about having that mindset of it is me that's going to make it happen. And of course, continuing to surround yourself with people who are going to support you and you're going to learn from, you're going to have mentors, all those different things. Another mindset shift that I have is around understanding that failure is going to make you stronger. It's so easy to want to quit. I've shared in prior episodes that I've had some obstacles and I had people by my side to encourage me because I thought, gosh, what am I doing? I think it was during the episode when we were talking about the oh my gosh, now I'm drawing a blank on the term, the imposter syndrome. And as an entrepreneur, you have to have the mindset that I will have challenges and quote failures and I will overcome them. That I'm not going to just give into it. That we are going to be in a place for ourselves around how we're going to go forward. Now, I do see some comments in the chat here, some comments and questions. Pamela said, a plan without a goal is just a wish. I agree with that. A good friend of mine used to always say, hope is not a strategy. That we do have to have some plans around that. So thank you for contributing that, Pamela. And then also we have from Ralph, what's the most effective way to get your brand out there? Ooh, great question. That actually is going to be another episode. We will talk in depth around how to get your brand out there. I will share in the meantime, as we're talking about resilience, that it is important to get your brand out there. Reason being is that's going to be part of what creates your momentum. That brand recognition, whether it's your company or you as an individual. So the most important thing really becomes what I said about the mindset. It's about you. And what are you doing to be able to help other people? How are you demonstrating your value for others? How are you doing, or how are you interacting with people in a way where they're going to recognize what you quote bring to the table. They're going to recognize the value that you bring. They're going to recognize that that's your brand. And then they're going to be the people who will continue to support you along the way. So when you face some challenges, that you are going to overcome that and have that resilience and have that grit because you've had successes and wins. I think that's a big thing to think about as well. You know, when it comes to failures, to really look at overcoming failures as wins. Sometimes we get so hung up on only having big wins and we don't think about the smaller wins. Smaller wins are huge. As a matter of fact, oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank on the actual number, but the habits of effective people, one of the very first things is make your bed. Why? Because it's a win for the day. It's a small win. You're starting off your day with a win. And I do believe that that mindset is about winning. And that actually ties into a comment I see from Pamela, also growth mindset versus fixed. So having that growth mindset is about having additional challenges that you overcome, having different perspective on what you want to achieve. You can even call it innovation. Sometimes people tie the word innovation specifically to technology. Innovation is mindset. Innovation is a growth mindset that we're going to continue to go forward. And that is part of what I said earlier about the law of the big mo, law of momentum, that will allow us to go forward in achieving that goal. Having a fixed mindset doesn't do you anything but keep you where you are. Now, that might sound a little bit harsh to some of you. The bottom line is we as a species always look to improve. There's not a single person who's watching this live stream right now who just wants to sit idly by. The reason why I say that is because you're taking the time out of your day to watch this live stream, whether it's the live stream or a recording. And so I would venture to guess that you don't have a fixed mindset in totality. There may be some things that you have in fixed mindset where you don't have the growth mindset that you need in order to get to the next level. And the reason why I say need is because of the book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. So we need to continue to have that kind of mindset around growth. And yes, Pamela, failure is growth. There is I came across an article a while back, and it said that when you think about your growth as an individual or even as a business leader, you can liken it to going to the gym. So when you're going to the gym, it's hard work. It hurts. Quite frankly, as you are building your muscles, it is literally tearing muscle tissue. That is what working out is. And when the muscle tissue tears, it strengthens and makes a person stronger to go from, whatever their personal record bench press is to something greater because they're working at it. And so that failure in the muscle tissue is actually growth. Okay. Now, again, please feel free to ask some questions in the chat so I can acknowledge those versus being Max Headroom talking head at you. There may be some people who are too young to even know what the heck I'm talking about with who Max Headroom is. um, so another thing that comes to mind when it comes to our topic today, own your drive, staying motivated in the pursuit of success. Another thing is, habits or routines that are effective in maintaining entrepreneurial momentum. I've talked a lot about momentum throughout this episode today. So when I think about habits or routines that I have found to be effective in maintaining that entrepreneurial momentum, there are a handful of them. one of them is around having a structure in what I want to be able to achieve, going back to small wins and big wins, going back to here's my ultimate goal and my GPS device, and here's my route along the way. And so having some structure around that. So what does that include? That includes making sure that I schedule time on my calendar. As a matter of fact, if it's not on my calendar, chances are I will fail. But the failure is a strength or is a growth opportunity because then I'll learn, oh my gosh, I need to be more consistent in putting something in my calendar when something comes to mind. Right? So I would say make sure that you have your agenda, have your calendar as a habit or routine to to create that momentum or to maintain that momentum because then you're going to be doing those right things. Along with that, at the end of each day, reflect on the day. What were the things that worked so that then you can reproduce that going forward? There's an organization that I'm beginning a partnership with, and the company is called Produce 8. This is not brought to you by no sponsorship, but it's a great organization, and they talk about leveraging data around activity for the day. And one of the data points that they can reference is that an employee of the organization who's using that system can actually put in their a self rating for how the day was. Um, it's I've forgotten the exact term that they use for it, but it is how do I feel the day was today? And then they can look at the data to see, well, what did they do in terms of the activity throughout the day to make it a good day? Or if they ended the day and it was a bad day, they can look at the data to say, oh, this is what made it a bad day. So now if you go back to what I said earlier about having that calendar and having things scheduled, and then reflecting at the end of the day, you can look back at your calendar to see, oh, what did I do? How much time did I spend making dials, making calls, reaching out through LinkedIn, reaching out through whatever means? How much time did I spend in meetings? How much time did I spend networking? How much time did I spend in my business? Right? Because as an entrepreneur, you have to balance between working in your business and on your business. My goal as a business coach is always to help leaders with working more on the business and less in the business. That a leader works in the business because they want to, not because they need to. That's my goal as a business coach. And so I'll say the same when it comes to the different habits that we have with that entrepreneurial momentum is really focusing on those wins that help us work on the business as we reflect on the day, right? And reproducing those efforts. I'll even say another habit or routine besides planning the day, besides reflecting, besides reproducing. I would say another part of it is to do the quote, um, oh my gosh, I am drawing a blank for words today. Your milestones. My goodness, your milestones. And having those milestones, because I talked about small wins and then there's the big wins, but you have to have the milestones along the way as well. And how well have you done in achieving those different things? Okay. I think that that is a great habit for maintaining the momentum because again, it's sort of that fuel the fire. Let's continue to go freight train that busts through that 5 foot steel wall. Now, Pamela, you had a comment earlier on the other side of the coin, staying motivated in the face of failure. Okay, yeah. So I've talked a lot about failure strengthens us, and I don't know if this is a comment or a question, so hopefully I'm addressing your comment accordingly. But when we are faced with failure, the the motivation we need to have needs to be even greater than what we had going into it. If we have this momentum and we're faced with this obstacle, this failure. If we just keep only the same momentum, the resistance isn't going to get us to our destination as efficiently as we want to. And so we're going to need to put more coal in the engine of this train, right? And what I mean by that is that motivation in that face of failure because we need to push through it. And guess what? It goes back to my comment about strengthening us, that the failure strengthens us. So when you do experience those things, continuing to have your eye on the ball is always going to, I'm sorry, your ultimate goal is always going to help you stay motivated in pursuit of success. Now, sometimes sometimes when it comes to the things that we're doing as entrepreneurs or as leaders, we have to take risks. We have to take risks. Again, going back to what got you here won't get you there. We have to take risks. We have to do things. And sometimes with those risks, we have to maintain our motivation because the risk is change. And inherently, human beings, although we're always evolving, we're always looking for better ways to improve and whatnot. Inherently, as human beings, change is a resistance. There's a part of our body that resists change. And again, risk can be considered change. So an example of a time where a risk that I took that has paid off and has helped me stay motivated in this process, I'll share a small risk, and that is, a lot of times people have the fear of failure. And sometimes that's why people don't become entrepreneurs. Sometimes that's why people don't pursue that promotion because of the fear of failure. And for me personally, a risk that I took was I started talking more with people who do the same kind of work that I do. And I've talked about this before, around competition versus collaboration. So I really started surrounding myself with other business coaches, other leadership coaches, other business strategists, a lot of the same types of people that do what I do. And I thought that it was risky at first because I'm like, oh, why do I want to? Why should I share secrets with them? You know, am I going to give them the playbook to my success? Yes, because then they're also going to do the same. I actually got to the point where I thought, you know what? There's so much business out there, it doesn't matter. And oh, by the way, I said this last week. Just last week, I said this, and that was um, I may do the same thing as someone else, but I deliver it differently than that other person. And that's a quote that I got from another leadership coach that I had met with last week. We had a great conversation. So that's a small risk that I took, was to say, okay, I want to talk to other people, talk to my quote competition, because I wanted to be able to learn. And that's the thing as an entrepreneur, because everything rises and falls on you, you have to continue to learn. You have to. You don't know all the answers, right? Yes, I can say, oh, it's all about me, but then again, it's all about we. I say that a lot of the time. And so, what can we do to take those risks to say, you know what, I'm not going to just keep my secrets to myself because I want to be able to grow. I want to be able to expand. Gosh, actually, I had met with a client earlier this week, and a common theme for this particular person is control. The common theme for this particular person is that they like control, and they find risk in letting go of control and letting somebody else jump in. And I know that this particular episode is around our own internal resilience, our own motivation, and that we can't necessarily rely on the coaches and consultants out there. But fortunately, my client sees what I bring to the table of value in terms of stretching that person, in terms of helping that person let go of some of that control. If you're stuck with wanting to control everything, you're not able to be everything to everyone. You're not able to be in all the different places that you need to be. And so you need to take that risk as well of letting go of some control. And so in that particular example of my client, letting go of some of the control included, what did that person start to delegate to other team members on the staff? Um, what are some of the things that I was challenging to say, what can you let let go of control around and have an automation in place to be able to get that work done to become even more effective than that person is today? So that in and of itself can be a risk. Now, the biggest risk that I'll share with you that I've taken that has paid off was leaving the comforts of corporate America. Now, I'm not saying that that's for everyone, and trust me, there are a lot of challenges that come along with that. But for those of you who have experienced the comforts of corporate America, you know what I mean by that. Comforts of corporate America being that I had a steady paycheck. I had steady employment, that I was able to contribute in such great ways and be okay. As an entrepreneur, I took the risk of launching my own company to have a different kind of meaningful impact. I had meaningful impact where I was, to have a different kind of sense of fulfillment. I had sense of fulfillment where I was, but it was a risk that I wanted to take for me personally for a different kind of growth. And it has been scary. I'm not going to lie. And how I've stayed motivated in this process of being a newer entrepreneur compared to Roy, who's been an entrepreneur for significantly longer than I have, is I continue to ask myself, well, why? Why did I make this decision? And it goes back to my motivation, my personal motivation, my professional motivation, what I want to be able to achieve. That's what it goes back to. And I'll be vulnerable and say it's something that I think about regularly. Did I do the right thing? Do I have what it takes? All those things. However, fortunately, I've surrounded myself with enough people who strengthen my mindset around, yes, I do have what it takes. Yes, I do deserve this. Yes, I will be able to achieve this. So, here I am talking to a bunch of you watching the LinkedIn Live, whether you're watching live or recording, all by myself. I just recently became a co-host of this particular show, and Roy apparently has had some connectivity issues, and here I am sharing insights. And I have to tell you, it feels so rewarding to be in this spot where I have this opportunity and ability to have meaningful impact for anyone, whether it's small or large. So that's certainly an area that I would say, risk that has paid off for me. Um, we are getting closer to the end of the hour here, so I will say one more time, please feel free to add a comment or a chat to interact and ask me any question that you might have about our topic. Again, our topic today is own your drive, staying motivated in the pursuit of success. So yes, please do chat in there. And Pamela, thank you for the words of encouragement. That yes, I do have what it takes. I appreciate you for that more than you know. Um, so before we wrap and address whatever other questions or chats come in to the live stream here, um, I will say, in terms of the prepared thoughts I had for the conversation, um, I'll end with this. and that is how has my approach to motivation, how has my approach evolved over my entrepreneurial journey? And again, my journey is relatively new compared to some other entrepreneurs out there. And my motivation has evolved in a way where I still have my ultimate goal. I still have that long-term goal that I established in terms of what I wanted to be able to achieve. And my approach to motivation has evolved through the relationships that I have with people around me. Again, whether it includes people who are business coaches, business strategists themselves, other entrepreneurs like Roy, who I get to learn from, like a number of my friends and colleagues that I network with. I continue to evolve my motivation based on um, feedback that I get from them, feedback around what I could potentially shift, pivot in my approach. My approach to my business has pivoted so many different ways, and it's evolved. And I believe it's going to continue to evolve. At the end of the day, my overall motivation remains the same, but then it could be enhanced along the way as well. You know, one of the big things I wanted to be able to have an impact on in launching my own company was having an impact with nonprofit organizations. And I sort of didn't know what that really meant other than I wanted to have an impact on my community. And so I'm happy to say that I am involved with different nonprofits, and I've been asked to be a part of the board of different nonprofits to have an impact. And so, you know, that motivation is still there, and I've had to evolve my approach to that specific one because again, I really didn't know what that meant early on. And so now I'm more deliberately finding nonprofits to partner with. There's a great nonprofit. I'll give him a shout out here, Ray Moeller of Little St. Nick's Foundation. And he does really, really great things. And I look forward to having a continued partnership with him and to be able to have an impact on what he's able to do across the entire country for youth. So anyhow, that is that one way that my approach to motivation has evolved is that, you know, looking for those different things where it's a little bit of my unknown. You know, we can easily just continue focus on what our strengths are and hang our hat on those things, and that's what we're going to do. And yes, that's what's going to carry us through. And the things where we might not be the strongest are things for us to bring up to par, to a point where it's not going to be problematic for our success. So I would say, you know, that is one of the ways that I have evolved my approach. Well, anyway, we are at the top of the hour here. I don't see any additional chats in the LinkedIn Live. I do want to thank you all for spending the time with Roy and myself in this LinkedIn Live today. I appreciate you, those of you who are watching the recording as well. We do this every single Friday. Every Friday at noon Eastern, we talk about secrets for success in 2025. If there are any particular topics that you'd be interested in hearing our perspective around, or even we could potentially invite another speaker, please do reach out to Roy or myself through LinkedIn, through Facebook, email, whatever it may be. But thank you so much for being with us today and sticking it out with me as I rolled out the end of the session here. Have a wonderful weekend, and here's to your success in 2025. Thanks, everyone.